We are in part 11 of talking about early Christianity and Gnosticism and the like. As always, this will be under 5 minutes. You can push the times 2 thing if you want it to go faster. Now, with this, one of the things we have to ask is, what is a Christian anyways? If you ask a modern Christian what a Christian is, they might have an answer for you. But does that actually encompass what Christianity is? And will it automatically invalidate all of the other forms of Christianity because they believe that their version is the only true version without any acknowledgement of any of the other ones actually having any validity? Because this is actually what happens a lot of the time. And this is not anything different. This has been a problem since the beginning because fundamentally there were many Christianities to begin with. Even though we have the narrative of this one single line of truth, no. We had many Christianities from the beginning because fundamentally when you stop being Jewish and you go, oh, okay, we're not Jewish. We're not going to be Jewish. And okay, well then you don't have any familial ties. You're fundamentally removing the one thing that the Jewish people had to keep their religion in a, kind of closed group. They were able to acknowledge each other and argue with each other, but they were always Jewish together. They were family, right? But when you decide that you are going to not have this Jewish movement be Jewish anymore, and you're going to have it be a Roman Christian movement, and you say, screw those Jewish people over here, you fundamentally end up in a place where you go, okay, but now what is an us? And instead of being just another entity that goes into the pantheon, you say, no, we're not worshiping your people. We're not worshiping your people. We have the truth, the only truth, the one truth. And this creates a situation in which you now have to determine, what do you have to believe? What do you have to think, or what do you have to do in order to belong? Because most of the other religions of the world at the time didn't have any of this kind of exclusivistic baseline. They didn't say, we are the only truth. They said, this is the truth for our people. These are the truths for our people. These are our gods, our cultural gods, our local gods, our invaders' gods that we had to take on. Like, these are the elements of sort of a yes and to approach to religion. It was always that way. Syncretic baselines have flowed throughout every group since the beginning of time. And even with Christianity, fundamentally, every culture that Christianity touched Christianity back and influenced how it was practiced. But Christianity brought exclusivism with conversion. And so they had to determine what the heck it was that meant that they were saying you were actually Christian. And that varied from group to group to group, right? Some of them adopted this and said, yeah, no, we're cool with syncretic baselines. We don't really care. You're all right. You believe in Jesus guy, and so Jesus guy is part of your practice. But many of them, and especially the Orthodoxy, said, no. You must believe these things. And they began to establish what would eventually become the beliefs that are stated in the Nicene Creed, right? And those beliefs fundamentally are established as a means of trying to unify, say yes and, to some of the major factions of Christianity at the time so that they could converge and make a powerhouse of themselves. Because a lot of the Nicene Creed fundamentally has aspects that gave a nod to opposing parties within the bishops and the leadership of the church, because there were people who believed different things. And so what they did was sort of go, yes, and this and that, because the idea is sort of living in that middle ground tension, because what it did was give them ultimately social and political power. The social and political power was the goal, and fundamentally that allowed them to create a narrative of this sort of tension between the extremes, where as long as we all sort of are willing to get along about this, we're okay. And then that tension was teased out more and more over time as more councils had to happen and more nuance had to be added and more rulings had to be given and so on and so forth throughout the history of Christian thought, right? Because every new situation causes new interpretations and new people asking questions that need to be addressed and new cultural context and new cultures that are being reached. So all of these things happen, but fundamentally the bar keeps moving. Each group gets to determine who belongs and who doesn't. And as we have more forms of Christianity splintering off and not being able to be kept down by this one Roman Catholic Church, fundamentally you end up with a lot of messes and a lot of people having a lot of different answers and all calling each other heretics.